Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for tuning in today. It means a lot to me. Thank you for the people that are finding me, the new subscribers. Thank you for sharing my videos and liking my podcasts. Today, as you can see, I'm not doing the Q&A. I do, again, just want to wish everyone a happy new year. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to share my thoughts on a topic that I've wanted to talk about for a while. It's kind of been bubbling away. And rather than just do like a very brief unpack of it in a Q&A, I'd rather spend a little bit more time explaining this and sharing my thoughts about it. It's definitely affected me. And if you're living in the modern world, then it's definitely will affect you or has already affected you. So I'm going to talk about the avoidant attacher, and I'm going to give you my experiences with it, and I'm going to be very, very honest with this as well. I'm still accepting Q&A questions. I would prefer to probably get about 30 questions. At the moment, I've only got 17, so I'm happy to just wait a couple more weeks. And please, if you feel so inclined, just send your question in. It is always anonymous. You can send it through via Instagram. That's where it's mostly appreciated. And any topic that you want to share or ask about, please ask me. Anything that's related to what's happening in Palestine, anything that's related to Israel, wars, things like that, I have to stay away from for obvious reasons. But other than that, I'm happy to just go into everything else that I want to get into. I have had 2 videos on my channel taken down, which really is very confusing to me. One of them was regarding the trans issue, which yet again, we're just being silenced again. So anyway, I'm going to go on with this podcast today and look at the avoidant attacher. So in a modern world, we have mostly in psychology 4 attachment styles. Okay, so I'm going to go through each one of them with you, and then I'm going to focus on the one that I'm sharing with you in this podcast. First, we have the secure attachment style. So this is intimacy, someone that is comfortable with intimacy, they like closeness, they can depend on others, and they like others to depend on them. Okay? That's pretty much what everyone would really aspire to for a healthy, stable relationship. And then we have, they engage in conflict in a way that is able to resolve things. They have good communication, so they're able to communicate openly and have access to their own emotions and access to their own, psychology. Remember, a lot of people these days don't. And they have kind of like a positive expectation that they uphold with their partner in a relationship. Now, life is relationships, okay? So, and I've said this so many times, and I'm gonna come back here again and say it again. The quality of our life is the quality of our relationships. We can go to work, come home, make money, and live in the world and have physical things, but that's all going to be landfill in the end. If you don't have good quality relationships with people that can see you, hear you, feel you, understand you, and like really receive you, then everything can suffer. The problem is with all of this, just sidetracking off me explaining the attachments, is that our childhoods directly impact us because we are a byproduct of our own experiences. Okay? Leading me into the next attachment style, which is the anxious attachment. So this is with their intimacy, they're kind of like want to be emotionally as close as possible. Yeah, so they're really clingy. In terms of conflict, they're very argumentative, hypersensitive, very moody, and basically a lot of their partner's thoughts, feelings, and behavior really changes and kind of dictates their behavior. Okay, it's very difficult to deal with this one, the anxious attachment, and their expectations is in a relationship that they need constant reassurance from their partner because they are terrified and worried about being rejected and abandoned. Okay, now obviously for obvious reasons, if you've come from a childhood where it's like a dog with a plate of food, put the food out, then take it away, put the food out, then take it away. You had a mother, a grandmother, a father, any parental figure that was just like on and off, you're going to be an anxious attachment style, more than likely. That's where these come from. Obviously, this is a general conversation. I can't go too hardcore down the rabbit hole, but you're probably going to be an anxious attachment. All right, so it's not good long term. All right, the next one we have is the fearful attachment style. So in terms of intimacy, they are very, very kind of like fearful tendency to kind of commit. They really are kind of come away, come here, go away kind of thing. They emotionally lash out at you constantly and you don't know why. You try and connect to them, and then it's very similar to the avoidant, but the fearful is like way hardcore. You know, this is really inconsistent, very confusing in their communication, and will not be vulnerable. Okay, so expectations in this relationship is obviously trauma. They're full of trauma. They've got lots of trauma. They're terrified of you're hurting them. They're going to hurt you kind of thing. And so they are really, this is kind of what we would see, the fearful and avoidant relationship dynamics are generally people that gravitate towards relationships that are generally open relationships. So it's like now I'm summarizing the avoidant and the fearful here, is that a lot of them would be like wanting to have a relationship with you, but at the same time also keeping options open for other sexual and emotional relationships with other people at the same time. So in layman's terms, what they would want is to have the sexual freedom of being single, acting single, while at the same time wanting the safety of a relationship, which I have explained to you in my book. Nothing could be more damaging, degrading, and just disgusting to another person than keeping a partner around and letting them know, look, if something else comes around, I'll, obviously jump ship, because we are hypergamous in nature. Humans I've explained hypergamy to you. We date up, we don't date down. So we're always kind of hardwired genetically to look for a better option. So to be with one partner and still be looking for other options of people that you would enjoy having sex with is really, it's just such a slap in the face. Modern day culture, we don't call them relationships. I heard a new word the other day, and it's like, it's just that, as we see an attack on vocabulary, we call them situationships now, which is, it's just terrifying, because what happens is we see the goalpost of a relationship in its nuclear sense is now being completely eroded, or they just kind of change the goalpost to wherever they want. And of course, this goes without saying in different communities. Obviously, in the gay community, most relationships that you'll see now are all open, which I will be exploring in another video at some point. Okay, so, and the final one, I know I'm trying to quickly summarize these so I can get onto the topic at hand and then share my experiences with you, is the avoidant attachment, which is this is the one that is really, really dangerous. Okay, this one causes super, super danger. Although all of them are except the secure. Most of them are dysfunctional. So the anxious is dysfunctional, the avoidant is dysfunctional, and the fearful attachment is dysfunctional. But the avoidant is more damaging because these guys come back. The avoidant kind of dips their toe in the water, comes back. The Cancer star sign does this a lot. The Geminis do this a lot. And some of, I've mentioned this in my astrology videos, some signs are more prone to do it, and it causes extreme heartbreak, extreme suffering and pain, fucking pain. And that's why I've always said, when you break up with someone, and I really stand by this, you do it right, you do it properly, you do it as an adult, you do it with humility, you do it with integrity. You sit down, you look at this person in the eye, and you tell them that this is how I feel, and you do it in a way that respects the other person and gives them that closure so that they know that this is over, and then they can close that chapter. As painful and as hard as that is to hear, they can accept that. But what the avoidant attacher does, and narcissists do this as well, just a double-edged sword, I'll get onto that probably a little bit later. The avoidant doesn't give you closure, and they keep you hanging on a loop. And this is now, in science and in brain study, we're actually seeing this actually causes brain damage to another person. And I can personally attest to this behavior and how painful it is. This is the avoidant attachment, is their intimacy equates is kind of like one foot in, one toe out. They avoid serious relationships. They avoid conflict. They avoid communication, which obviously goes without saying. If we can't communicate with each other, how can we meet each other's needs? Then we have a problem. They're not comfortable discussing their emotions, and they share very, very little about themselves. So as you would know, it's very, very difficult to build a relationship with someone that isn't willing to actually show you who they are. So that you don't know who they are. They can project and mirror you, because that's obviously in the love bombing phase. You get kind of drunk and high on that love vibe. But when it comes to the avoidant attacher, it's a very unstable thing. Now, I'm going to be really honest with you. A lot of mental disorders operate on this level anyway. Obviously, bipolar, obviously borderline personality, obviously operates on this level. It's part of their composition. And now, this isn't shaming anyone who has those conditions. Obviously, it is what it is. But if it's not treated with therapy, and if it's not recognized, and if it's not dealt with properly, and that person isn't committed to doing the work, and yes, in some cases needing some stabilizing, their behavior becomes the problem, because their behavior is the symptom. And this can also be tied into the avoidant attacher as well, which is love bombing, ghosting, coming and going. And humans are humans. We're not robots. So for someone to idolize you, want you, and then ghost you, won't even respond back to you with the slightest hello, how are you? It goes from one high to the other high. And this is very, very jarring. And it's very jarring if you've been dating someone that has ghosted you, or if you've been dating someone that, is very, very hot and cold. And I have mentioned, and yet again, I'm saying it again, with a lot of people that live in a state of indifference and ambivalence. This is one thing as a grown adult now that I've learned. If I meet people and they're living in two worlds or multiple worlds at one time, like a double underground life, or if they don't know who they are or have a strong sense of self first, this is not a stable sense for me to connect with, and I will not engage with it. Why? because I've learnt that someone who doesn't have stability within themselves cannot offer me stability with me in our connection, because someone cannot give something that they just don't have. Okay. And they may not be aware of it, and most of the time they aren't. This is why I'm going to say in this video, and it might upset people, I stay absolutely away from anyone who is bisexual. Okay. I absolutely do not recommend getting involved, particularly pertaining from my personal experience. I'm not talking about bisexual women. I'm talking about bisexual men. Bisexual men, from my experience, live a very inauthentic life. They really like to play sides, and a lot of them are on the psychopathy level. So a lot of them are on the Machiavellian scale. A lot of them are narcissists, and they like the power play of being able to flip a switch whenever they feel like it. Now, I'm an occultist, and I've also studied psychology extensively, as you can probably hear and tell, is that I've also gone through these experiences firsthand, is that anyone who lives a lifestyle that is really inauthentic with themselves, where they are very deceitful to their partner, where they are lying to their partner, where they are hiding things about themselves, this is not a good place to be, particularly if it is a bisexual or closeted person. Because what they do, they pull you back into the closet with them, into this underground lifestyle of hiding. And it's a really inauthentic lifestyle, obviously, and it's very demeaning to the people that or the gay men that they pull back in with them, because the gay man is already owning his truth. He's already living his truth. He's come out of the closet, out of the darkness of hiding. He's owning his truth, and now is engaging with someone who is where he's the embodiment of the parts of themselves that the bisexual person is rejecting and is using. So a lot of closeted bisexual men, and even some cases, dare I say, just gay men that are really just pretending, they pull straight men back into gay men back into the closet with them. So it's also a power dynamic in society as well, for obvious reasons. One is a minority and the other is the norm. So obviously it's going to go without saying. This style of behavior is very much connected to the avoidant attacher, which is someone that just comes and goes and uses you as they please. And then the moment it gets kind of a little bit connected, they just kind of walk straight out, and you never hear from them again. It's always on their terms, when they're horny, when they're around, when their wife's away. You're just like a toy or a doll for them to play with because they're bored. And I will say, on a karmic level, everything that we do in life and the way that we treat people, and also the character that we build in this life, means something. It's all connected. So please, if you're out there and you do this to other people, and I know a lot of people do, and they try and justify it in their own way. I'm not cheating because it's a man and it's not a woman and I can't get her pregnant, or, just bear in mind that gay men don't have the access to the resources and didn't grow up. A lot of them did not grow up in a normal environment where they had access to what we call in psychology the downpouring, where they had access to really stable relationships with their families. So a lot of them are unstable, and then they confuse sex as a way to connect rather than being able to really establish real, healthy, stable relationships with people. So this kind of one and done mentality is very much in the gay zeitgeist, and that is basically exploited by bisexual men. That being said, I'm just going to say that on the top of my head as well. So I want to come back now to talking about the avoidant attacher. I know I'm putting a lot into this podcast, and I want to try and keep this tight. You have to be really, really, really careful when you get involved with these types of people, because the brutal honesty of this is that it is a dysfunctional relationship, and what happens is we can kind of become quite codependent to how they make us feel. And sometimes we don't even have an understanding of what is really going on here. So we don't know until we know. And that's why getting videos like this out there and getting support groups, and there are codependent support groups out there. There's a lot more support out there in these days than there ever was before. Even with counseling and therapists for both people, for the avoidant attachers and for the people that are basically their victims, is that there is support out there. But first of all, we have to be willing to see how we impact other people. We have to be willing to be wanting to do the work and then look at our behavior. Now, one of the things that I talked about in a previous video was the feedback loop. When we have no one in a feedback loop telling us how we're behaving back to us and we're never challenged or get feedback, we don't know because no one's showing us. And that this feedback loop is how we grow. So a lot of people, and a lot of men in particular, they kind of have this like, I've got everything's fine, I've got it under control. I know what's best, I'm the leader, but sometimes they don't know what's best. And sometimes they do need to get help. They need a perspective outside of themselves. So that like, even if it was a support group or a therapist, where the therapist is able to look at it and go, hang on, you're doing that again. You're doing that again. Don't do that. And then they can catch themselves in the loop, because we can't change behavioral patterns until we acknowledge the behavioral pattern. Now, in some cases with the avoidant attacher, they know what they've done is wrong. They've love bombed someone, they've courted you, dated you, taken you out, told you you're amazing, a lot of love bombing going on. It's massive rushes of all of the feel-good chemicals in the brain. And it's, you feel fantastic with this person. And then all of a sudden, those behavioral patterns after a week or a month or whatever completely shift. And then you're kind of left with this kind of gypped feeling, like, who are you? Like, what, why? Or they're very avoidant. They don't respond back to you. They're not prioritizing you. And in some cases, that's just because the connection wasn't strong enough and they've found someone else. And that's fair. But the ones that really love bomb you and then ghost you, it really robs you of your own ability to close that chapter, because they haven't provided you with any level of accountability for treating you so poorly. And some of them do. Some of these avoidant attachers really, really do have deep-seated shame. And what I've learned from experience, a lot of the time it comes from extreme insecurity within them. It wasn't you, it was them. And so what it was is that what they did to you in love bombing you and avoiding you and ghosting you completely is they projected the biggest fear that they have onto you. So their biggest fear of being rejected and abandoned, they're so scared you're going to do it to them, they do it to you first. They push you away first. And that's, it's horrible, because you just like, what did I do? Am I not good enough? And this pining and hoping that it's going to come back and it doesn't come back for long periods of time. And then it does. And then eventually, what's in my case personally, this person did reach out to me and say, hey, how you doing? How are you? And it's like playing like everything's fine. It's really like a fucking yo-yo. It's up and down, and it's very damaging. That's why it's very, very cruel to give someone hope, play with someone else's heart, play with someone else's mind, and then just like, it's like, while you've got other people on the side all at one time. It's generally how relationships, how people are these days. It's just such a head fuck. And if you're an empath, or if you're a very sensitive person that has a great range of emotional connection to yourself, you're going to be fucked up. But they a lot of the time they're not aware of it. You're the one suffering. You're the one thinking about them while they're off fucking other people. And a lot of these avoidant attachers, they are sex addicts. A lot of them are always logged in online on hookup apps looking for any level of attention to get that kind of high of someone else desiring them to fuel this kind of bottomless hole that's just in their fucking soul. And it's so fucked up. And with the cyber world, I mean, it goes without saying, it's quite normal. So what we call that when they come back, that's the boomerang avoidant. And that means that they come back, and in some cases, this is really, really what's fucked up. In some cases, the boomerang avoidant will apologize and even acknowledge what they've done to you as wrong and cruel, and kind of own it into some capacity, promise you that they won't do it to you again. And then you kind of go, okay, all right, we'll work through this. Let's make a go of it again. And then they start to rebuild your trust again, that they're not going to ghost you or just run away and avoid you and disappear. And then everything seems to be going okay. And then a couple of weeks later, a month later, they're doing it again. They're avoiding you. They're not messaging you back. They're busy. They're getting shorter responses from you. You're getting shorter responses from them. They're just really kind of, not really, putting you before anything else. You're just kind of back in the background. And then you start to suspect that they're probably having these other connections with other people, and you're kind of like plan B and C and D. You're not the forefront. And the one thing that they promised you that they wouldn't do, they're doing it all over again. So then you go through this kind of, am I not good enough? Am I not worthy enough? Am I not pretty enough? Is the sex not good enough? Do I bore them? And you start to go into your head and try to think, what is it about me that I can change? Because you're now being controlled by this person in your head. So they're kind of taking up all of this fucking bandwidth in your brain as you're thinking about them. Well, they're off getting the next hit of dopamine from the next person and the next person. And they're very dismissive of you. So it's just coming back and forth, 1 minute here, the next minute's on and off. This is a fucking nightmare to deal with. And if you've ever been through this, you know exactly what I am talking about here. It is just so soul destroying. It is the cruelest thing that you can do to another person. And that's why I always come back in my advice here in this video. When you meet someone, the best prediction of future behavior is past behavior. Okay? The best prediction of future behavior is past behavior. Where they've come from, what they're doing, is always going to be key. If they could lie to their wife about being straight and they're not, imagine what they're going to do to you, because that's not a little thing. That's a huge thing, So fundamentally, families are built on lies, So this isn't just a small thing. Particularly, you've got to look at how much of their truth in themselves that they're owning. Okay? You've got to own your truth. You've got to own what belongs to you, because when you don't own what belongs to you, you're going to hurt people around you, because you're going to build things that are not real with other people and then try and justify them. And no amount of money or care that another person provides another person that they've kept stringing them along is going to justify that level of behavior. Nothing. No physical thing in the world can make up for spiritual in the heart. All right? It doesn't matter how rich they are. It doesn't matter the lifestyle that they provide. If it's not real, the other person is going to get hurt regardless. Even kids get involved here. I've seen it and I've lived through this as well. It's fucking horrendous. All right? So these people that try and reappear in your life, popping up and reappearing, avoiding you and trying to get the cycle, like I said, to just the cycle resets again, and it goes around and around, and they come back and then they want to come back again and they want to come back again. This is that disorganized attachment style in the avoidant. Fear of intimacy. I'm going to share something here I've also noticed as well. There is no such thing as commitment phobia. All right? When someone uses that line on me, I can't, it's just so childish. And I'm going to explain why. It's such a gaslight, all right? You can't live in this world and not be committed to something. That's not possible. You breathe air, you drink water. We need commitment to some level of capacity. There is no such thing as commitment phobia, only fear of loss of option. All right? So in some cases, when someone comes out later in their life, and I'm kind of coming back to the gay projection that I was talking about before, is that if an older man has come out as gay, he's finally owning his truth, which is great. Better late than never, obviously, for everyone involved. But what it is that he's probably going to go through kind of like a catch-up phase where he will want to have sex with all of these other people straight away. He'll be very, very sexually active because he's kind of making up for the lost time of exploration that he probably didn't have when he was back in his 20s, that kind of wild horse kind of mentality. So they play catch up, and this is also not a good sign that a person wants to be with you. Okay, it's really, really dangerous. So yeah, if they've come out of some kind of long-term thing, it's probably best to let them go, let them be free, let them roam and do what they need to do. But at some point, I'm 38 now, I'm completely over hookups. It doesn't really do anything for me. I've completely outgrown this shit. I actually find it really sad when I see older people that are lonely, single, and just on these hookup cycles. It kills me watching it because I know that they're deeply unhappy, and sex is not the answer. And sex is also a drug. I've just got to mention here as well. You can get addicted to sex. A lot of people are completely addicted to sex. So yeah, preference type is someone that is not that's really got that stability, because they're going to be avoidant. Okay, it just goes without saying. And they can be quite cold, and it's really, really hurtful as well. So the first thing you need to do is recognize you're on a cycle that is dysfunctional, and it is going to keep spinning around and around and around, and it's not going to go anywhere because the other partner is not going to be committed to doing the work. They're not going to change their behavior. I don't think people change as I'm getting older. I think that people just grow or they atrophy. I don't think change is a very big word. I think who we are is who we are, but we just find different ways to adapt to things. So we find different ways to adapt to things, whether it's learning to be more vulnerable with ourselves, vulnerable with others, and that simultaneously helps us obviously create connection with other people. But you can't connect to something that is not connected to itself. Okay. Now, another thing I wanted to bring up as well in this video before I get out of here is that narcissists and avoidant attachers get put in the same category. And I'm going to separate the difference between the two because I've learnt the difference between the two. A narcissist will use ghosting and avoiding you and demeaning you as a way to break you down so that they can control you. Okay, so the one who can pull away first in a relationship is the one who regains control of the relationship. And that goes for any capacity, friendship, anything. All right? But narcissists do the pull away as a way to demean you, to make you thinking about them, to make you feel worthless, to break you down so that they can keep you where they need you. All right? And that's a ploy that a narcissist does deliberately. The avoidant attacher isn't doing it to control you. They just don't have the tools within themselves to sustain the connection on a consistent level. All right, so that's the difference. The avoidant attacher isn't doing it to control you. make you feel worthless, break you down, and then, you know, they'll love bomb you. And in the love bombing stage, a lot of mirroring happens. So that's because that's how you're connected, I'm connected, now we feel connected kind of thing. They still do that, but they do. Avoidant attachers have a deep-seated sense of shame. And a lot of them they're so ashamed of how they treated you or how they treated their girlfriend or their boyfriend. And they know deep down what they've done. It's just whether they're adult or man enough to own it and say, hey, I'm really sorry, and be like honest about it, but not do it in a way where they breadcrumb you and then just hold power over you later. So it is you've got to be careful, because sometimes, these behavioral patterns of hot and cold, off, I want you, I don't want you, I want you, I don't want you, is very objective. So I don't go, my advice is look for people that have that stability. They either have it or they don't, all right? Or they don't have it and they're actively working on it. And then that's the thing. What you get in a relationship with someone is a mirroring of their childhood. Okay, so what you get in a relationship, what is unhealed there, just remanifests again as an adult, because we have to go through the healing, which is the mending, the fixing of stuff. That's what life is. We're all kind of mirrors to each other. I hope that made sense. But it's a real fucking nightmare, and I've been through this. I got involved quite a few years ago with a man that did this to me. Definitely most likely on the psychopathy level. A lot of them are high achievers, obviously status, wealth, appearance, very important. Another one that you'll notice as well with the difference between a narcissist using avoidant attachment strategy on you and just an avoidant attacher is that they gaslight you. So the narcissist a narcissist will avoid you and deflect you and treat you horribly. And then the moment you stand up for yourself, they'll tell you that it's all in your head. Or as I quote, when I told that person, this is how you make me feel based on how you treated me. I was told that it was inappropriate, and I was told that I was how narcissistic, and I was told that, what else was it? It was really quite interesting that their own behavior that they do to you, they put back on you doing to them. And that it was weird, I remember I was told I was weird, that I would, and all I'm doing is saying, this is how you impacted me based on what you did. And this person at the time was actually online, and their profile said partnered. So they love bombed me, ghosted me, and then a few years later in between, I'd actually messaged this person and said, hey, look, I need you to please just leave me alone. And they didn't. They just kept on woofing at me and messaging me over the years, completely after already ghosting me and not giving me a chance in a relationship, which was also unexplained and quite strange. Now they're in a relationship with someone else while actively messaging me. And then me telling them, hey, this is really fucking with my head. Then they throw it back in your face as if it's all in your head and you're weird, you're being inappropriate. So that's how we know that we're dealing with the psychopathy level there. They try and gaslight you, but you know in your heart what is true, you know what is real, and you know that if someone, at the end of the day, it goes without saying, how someone treats you shows you who they are. Do you really want to be with someone that treats you this way? No. And by the way, they're not just treating you this way, they're treating everyone this way. It's not like a hat that they can take off, right? And so how someone treats you shows you who they are, and it shows you how much value they place in you. All right. So when you feel that you don't matter, and unfortunately, a lot of gay men don't have a lot of self-esteem. They do base a lot of their own sexual marketplace value, like that dictates their life. well, that's a very, very bad place to come from, because there's no presence of the heart and there's no presence of the mind in that. And so then they're susceptible to being used by the psychopathy level people, and the avoidant attachers come in too. So it really comes down to what you're prepared to put up with. And when you know your value and you know your worth, like it's taken me so long to understand this. And hey, it's a journey. And if you're out there and you're in this situation, I just want to give you a hug, because I understand. Okay, this is heartbreaking stuff. And in some cases, some people, like, it affected me so badly, and that's why I'm sharing this video from every like part of my soul in this video, and being vulnerable and sharing this. I nearly killed myself. I nearly hung myself on my balcony over this. Okay, this behavior really, really, really fucking destroys a soul. So the moment that we recognize it in other people and we know that it's not good, we know that it's not right, you know in your heart, deep down, when you are connected to your own sense of self, you know that this person is not who they say they are. All right, you can feel it energetically. All right, so go with that. All right, okay. And you deserve love. You deserve to be with people that can give you love, because life is short and it's very difficult to prolong a relationship that isn't real and be with a friend or a partner that is not emotionally available for you and is really just quite, frankly, is just using you. All right. So when we have self-value, we have boundaries. When we have boundaries up in place, these things can't get to these stages, because the first signs of dysfunctional behavior that isn't checked, we just remove ourselves away from it and we don't engage with it. Even if these days the majority of people are dysfunctional, because we do live in a mentally ill society now where dysfunction is basically the norm, normalized dysfunction, we still have to uphold a level of integrity within ourselves to know what we deserve, what we're prepared to accept from another person. Okay, so I know this has been a big one. Please leave a comment below. Please share my videos, share this podcast with anyone who needs to hear this. You're not alone. There is support out there for you. And if you're able to recognize any of the things that I've mentioned here in your own life, whether you've done it to someone or you're having someone doing it to you, please, please, please know you are not alone. This is now really common. And yeah, it goes without saying. So lots and lots of love. This was my video or my podcast on avoidant attachers, and I will see you in the next podcast and my Q&A. Send a question in or leave a question below in the comments. Okay, I'm getting out of here. All right, bye. Lots of love. Okay, bye.